Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast. It's the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, social media, everything really, depending on the guest. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. My guest is an actor, a writer, a director. His film Almost Love is streaming now, and I'm a big horror movie fan. You also recognize him from one of my favorite horror movies, The Invitation. We're with Mike Doyle. Mike, welcome to Popternative.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem. I did have to bring it up. You know what I mean? Like, right off the cuff, you are in an amazing horror film called The Invitation that I feel like never goes away. Like, people always like watch it when I recommend it to them, and they're like, "Wow, this got bumped to like my top 10 list." Like, it's really cool, man.
That's great. Yeah, we of course didn't know that while we were making it. We all knew that the script was fantastic and that the director Karan Kusama was amazing, and the writers Matt Manfredi and Phil Hay were amazing, and the actors. But you never know, how things are going to come together and how things are going to be received. And it just sort of like came together beautifully. And in one of those, it's rare when that happens. So like you really appreciate, it's always nice to hear people, rave about that film because we really had a great time making it.
But if you go back and watch previous episodes of my show, like, and we talk about horror, because horror gets brought up a lot because it's a great genre. I love the genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it's the first one I always bring up. Like, have you seen The Invitation?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So-
it's good, because it's also like deceptively, it's a deceptively sort of simple story, but it's really complex. Like they really structured it in a way that like you feel things in that movie because of the way they've built the characters, the relationships, the backstory. It's really smart. And I can say that because I didn't write it or direct it. It's all them.
For sure. Speaking of something that you did write and direct, that was a great little segue there. Almost Love, romantic comedy. I mean, there's a lot going on in this, and the cast. When you look at the cast that you put together too, like it's a really cool cast, man.
Yeah, I was, really lucky. It's an ensemble film. It's a romantic comedy about a group of friends sort of spinning their wheels in love, life, and relationships. And, it really depends on, it's very dialogue heavy. It depends on performance, depends on chemistry. So, we've got Kate Walsh, who's amazing, Scott Evans, Augustus Prue, Patricia Clarkson pops her head in for a little while. And, I've been acting for a long time. So, a lot of these people I had relationships with and was able to sort of, lean on them when push came to shove in terms of getting them to join.
So can you talk about the transition then? You mentioned like you've acted a lot, right? And now you're writing and you're directing a film. What was that kind of transition like a little bit for you?
Did you ever see Terminator no, it wasn't like no, it's sort of seamless. I had written and directed some shorts while I was working on some shows and had free time. And I certainly haven't given up acting. I still work on a couple of shows in New York. But I just wanted to sort of do more, express myself creatively in a different way.
For sure.
And I was lucky because I mostly do episodic television. I go to many, even if you're on the same show, it's always a different set with a different director.
Yeah.
So I just took the opportunity to really use that as film school and really learn, from television directors, but then also on films, I had the benefit of working with Clint Eastwood and there's no one better, to sort of model yourself after as an actor director, because he sort of sort of created the mold, when he was much younger. And so it was amazing to work with him and learn from him.
Was this your directorial debut with Almost Love?
My feature, yeah. But shorts I had directed before.
So I remember when, Jonah Hill made his directorial debut for mid-90s. I saw an interview he did, and and they asked him, what were you looking to get out of this? Like, how was your experience? And he says, like, I want to be able to make another movie. Like, that's kind of what I want to do. That's the main thing. Is it the same thing with you with Almost Love? Like, did you kind of make that be like, oh, I want to make another one? You know what I mean?
That's the goal. I mean, once you direct, you sort of, it's a very different experience from being an actor, because an actor is just a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the pie, very important piece, but it's just a piece. And as a director, you sort of have to juggle a lot of balls and keep them aloft in the air. And like, it's really fun. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I'm going to go back to the invitation. I'm sorry.
Go back as much as you want.
It's one of, you mentioned it, like the different elements, but like I feel like this is the perfect example of a film that could scare you without the gore and without the jump scares. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about the genre, Mike. We're figuring out new ways to scare people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's this sort of sense of dread that the film has, and that I think Karin really kept this tension throughout.
The tension is there. As soon as you all show up to the dinner party, you're like the viewer is doing detective work right away, because you're like, there's 5 people here that are acting really weird.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Like, sometimes I dissect this movie a little bit too much than I should, right? But, like, even your character sometimes, like, the way he responds to certain things, like, you're like, what's going on there? You know what I mean? Like,
well, the funny thing is, and spoiler if you haven't seen it, but, like, I'm wrong most of the time. Like, I'm like, chill, it's fine, they're cool, like, it's like, no, something's up.
And that's you, right? That says, you're like, she's not breathing. That's you, right? Who says that line?
Do I say that?
Someone says it because, like, you're about to do the toast, right? And then Julie does the toast before everyone else, and she basically...
Yeah. Is it Miguel who says she's not breathing?
Might have been Miguel. Someone says like, she's not breathing. That is like, that whole sequence...
Well, I mean, it's like, and it's also what's so, like, the music, the score is incredible.
Dude. So
just that, like, that it's
when Pruitt
just like,
starts shooting, when Pruitt starts shooting people.
Yeah, and it just feels like a ratcheting up of things, and it's from that moment on, the movie is another movie, and it's so worth the wait. Because I think it's, it has such a great payoff.
It's not.
I mean,
but it's a slow burn.
shot,
but like, it's a slow burn. But like, I've watched it. Like, I'm not even kidding you. I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you this, but I've watched it like over 20 times. You know what I mean?
Have you?
Like,
all right.
I don't know, man. Because like I'm dabbling. And I'm writing my own short horror films. You know what I mean? And like, obviously, you want to make your own kind of style. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where, like, I look at that as kind of inspiration, because in my opinion, it really like, The Dinner Party Gone Wrong is like a really good, you brought up, you enjoy like dialogue and scenes and everything. And like, The Dinner Party is an area where that happens a lot, where you could do a lot of things. You know what I mean?
You know what's so crazy about it? Matt and Phil, they're primarily comedy writers. They wrote the Ride Along series. They wrote, so they know relationships, and they know how to put a group of people together interestingly, because it's hard to have an ensemble of 9 people in the same space for 90 minutes, And
you said you only shot that took like a month to shoot, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty fast and furious. And Karin also was, because it takes place at night, and as you know, when you shoot at night, it's the worst because you get called at like 9 p.m. and you don't wrap until like 6 a.m. And it's your schedule's all messed up. So Karin very wisely decided to tent the house. So we shot during the day.
Oh,
Except
really?
there were a few exterior night shots, obviously, that we had to shoot during the night, and there were also some shots through the house to outside where it's night, so that was obviously night. But for the most part, those black windows, it's because they've blackened out the whole house.
See, I love this, Mike. This is why I created Popternative. I wanted to find out things that you wouldn't hear anywhere else. The behind the scenes. This is what it's all about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep, that was one of them. We also had, which was another thing that I speaking about, film school as an actor, but I learned from Karin. She was able to carve out 2 days of rehearsal. So first of all, we weren't, because these are friends with deep past relationships and a lot of stuff. And she didn't very often when you're an actor, you meet for the first time, your first day of work. And it's just like, oh, hello. And now we're, in a fight scene, or we're in a sex scene, or, there's like,
yeah.
And so but you're just meeting them. And so she was really firm about us having some time. And so we had 2 days where we met one another, and it was interesting to see how we all sort of like, how the groups formed in the rehearsals sort of naturally. And it's funny because John Carroll couldn't be there for the first day, and then he was there for the second day of rehearsal, and the whole vibe just changed. And John's like he's like a teddy bear. He's the sweetest, kindest, most gentle man, but like him in the mix, it was a real shift that ultimately worked, really well, because there's something off about that character.
Absolutely. This is obviously a movie that people can watch on a streaming service known as Netflix. As a writer, director, and actor, and a storyteller, that's like how I like to what I like to call people like yourself. You're a storyteller, essentially. What do you think of the current landscape of the streaming services in regards to the fact that there's so many different projects that are coming out non-stop on all of these streaming services? It just feels like every day there's like a new thing to watch.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of content. The plus side is that there's a lot of great content. Sometimes you have to wade through it a little bit more. With our film, with Almost Love, we were supposed to have theatrical. We had the benefit of being on the festival circuit for the last year. So I was able to experience the film in a packed theater, and because it's a comedy, and also I would say with a horror film too, like there's an energy in the audience that's really very different than watching it on your computer or watching it on your TV alone or with some friends. And I think streaming is great, but I hope we don't lose the theatrical component, because
there's a communal aspect to it too, right? Like going with your friends and family.
Absolutely. And with the comedy, with Almost Love, like the first time I saw it with an audience, I was like, having an ulcer, because I'm like, you hope your jokes land, and that means people laugh. And it was so gratifying to be in an audience, of a few hundred people laughing at, this crazy idea you had a few years ago. So, I do think, there's, I think streaming is great, but, I hope it's still so that like sort of the cream can rise to the top.
Well, with like COVID-19 and the quarantine, like we haven't done this in a long time, but me and my friends, like we're big horror movie fans, and we would have like horror movie nights, right? Where we would do like 2 or 3 horror movies, and we would watch them. And
what else is up there with the invitation for you? Like your top 3?
Top 3. I really enjoyed another one that's available on Netflix, Would You Rather, with Brittany Snow.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
That is amazing. And there's one recently, like, have you seen The Invisible Man yet?
Yeah.
How good was that?
I mean, I jumped out of my seat and screamed like a.
But how amazing was that crafted, man? That's like a work of art film, man.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. I mean, so clever and Elizabeth Moss is, incredible.
Are you a fan of the genre as well? Because I find there's some people I've interviewed that are in like the horror genre that don't really like they'll watch it from time to time, but they're not like super into it. Like, are you into the genre?
I like a good one. I'm probably not as avid a fan as you are. Like, I like a clever. I like a I love a good scare. I'm not so much into gore, but like, what was the one that I loved because I thought it was like scary and hilarious? Drag Me to Hell.
Yes, of course.
Sam Raimi, right?
Of course, yeah. That's classic.
I loved that movie. I mean, I laughed. I mean, again, I saw that in the theater too, and the experience. I watched it again with a friend, at home, and it was a different experience because in the theater, I remember laughing so hard.
But the thing is, it's like, because that's like, I think that's like mid 2000s. That's like 07 or 06 or 7.
Yeah.
That, okay.
Yeah.
But like, it's funny because if I give you my top 10 horror movies of all time, right? There's like, most of them are newer because I find the genre has like evolved. Like
Gotten
most
better.
of them are like 2012. I mean, the only one that's a little older is, have you seen Ghost Ship with Julianne Margulies? Do you remember that one?
No, I never saw that.
Oh man, that's
so
good stuff.
Good.
It's good stuff for sure. But that's like the only like older one I might like put in my top 10. House of Wax remake with Alicia Cuthbert and Chad Michael Murray, just because that was like the first horror film that I went to see in the theaters.
Yeah.
And it was like the coolest day ever, you know what I mean? Because like my sister brought me to see it, and it's like I get to go to a horror movie, you know what I mean? Like that kind of. It's like it holds close to my heart in that regards. But like, The Invitation, Would You Rather, a one I recently watched, which is similar to The Invitation, called 1BR, One Bedroom, which is an indie film, incredible. The Invisible Man, The Perfection, which is on Netflix.
I'm friends with the director of that film. I thought it was great.
That was, dude. There's so many. Like, I actually have like a list. Like, Cam.
Did you see a few years ago? Did you see It Follows?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put that in my top 10, but I really enjoyed it. But like, I just watched one called Eli, which is on Netflix. That was really good as well. I'm a huge fan of obviously like the cloud, like Get Out and Us, which haven't even been out like that long, and people are considered them classics. You know what I mean? There's so many, but like, you were in my favorite. You were in my favorite one, so like you're actually it's my favorite horror movie.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And like there's also like Dinner Party Gone Wrong movie You're Next. Have you seen that one?
Yeah. Wait.
It's pretty similar. There's actually like 5 or 6 movies, Mike, that are like Dinner Party Gone Wrong. It's like you guys, like, there's like You're Next. There's one that came out called Ready or Not. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't. No.
It's because that's like a genre, the Dinner Party Gone Wrong a little bit.
Exactly.
So for Almost Love, that came out, I believe it's like you called it like it's like discussions. It's like the smartphone era. That's what you're kind of determined. Like
some dumb film festival put that in their blurb, and it's haunted us because like it's not about smartphones and it's not about like swiping. It's not because
it's on the IMDb and it says that.
I know.
You can't go and change it.
That are like out of your control. That like. I'm just amazed, and the thing about that is like that sort of thing gets traction. Like there was someone who I think we had a talk back, and the person who was moderating was upset because like it wasn't about the smartphone era. I was like, did you read our press release?
You're so frustrated about it.
Like we never said it was about that. Someone else said it, and then it's just like, and it's interesting because like as a director, when you exert a lot of control over all aspects of a film, and then once it's out, you have to let it go. So like that is one of the things that I've had to let go, and you could see I'm still having a tough time letting it go.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on Popternative, man. This was
My
awesome
pleasure.
to chat
This
with
was a
you.
blast.
So it's streaming now. Like people can go buy Almost Love right now. They can go watch it.
Yeah,
right now.
it's on all the places you rent and buy movies like iTunes, Google Play, Fandango Now, Vudu, all that, all of them.
And they can watch that other horror movie we talked about a little bit on Netflix, right?
You can see The Invitation on Netflix. It's on Netflix still, right?
It's still on Netflix. Because
Yeah,
sometimes like they change it up, right? Like sometimes there's movies I watch on Netflix that aren't on Netflix anymore.
I know they sort of like have waves.
No, but it's still on Netflix.
Oh, good.
And I feel like it came out at a time too where Netflix like put a bunch. It was like 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
When Netflix put a lot of different horror movies on at the same time, I feel. And then people kind of watched them all. So it was like the marathon aspect of it too. But no, that movie's amazing, and I've definitely probably I've watched it like a lot of times, and it's cool. I want you to know though that it does have a very it's very popular in the genre.
Yeah, that's great to hear. No, and of course we can't talk about the great spoilers because they sort of flipped some things on their head, like in terms of. I can't even talk about it because I'll give it away. Never mind.
No, it's amazing. Well, seriously, thank you so much for doing this interview, man.
Yeah, no problem. Take care in Ottawa.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Be sure to check out Mike Doyle's Almost Love, which he wrote and directed, which is available now for streaming. And until next time, this is Mike Doyle and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.